Thank you, Nitin. I was listening to that introduction and I was like, who's that lady? How y'all doing? I am doing excellent too. I think this is a good day to have a inclusive Elevate summit. It is long overdue, and I want to say to you, Nitin, Annika, thank you so much for the work that you've done. I feel like I've known you for over 20 years, but we became fast friends about 4 years ago, 3 years ago. And many of you know about the Bend Convention, Venture Convention. What do you call it? Exactly. And I had created the inclusive fund, or put the money in the budget, and it passed, and created a partnership with the city of Portland. And I didn't know this guy, and he found me in a crowd. I mean, it was hundreds of people at this reception. And he came over to me, and I didn't think anyone knew about it because we hadn't publicized it. And he said, I have to be your fund manager. I was like, who are you? What fund manager? About what? And he said, aren't you the one that helped to get the inclusive fund together? I said, yeah. I said, but we have a panel, and we're going to go through interviews, and at that time, it was PDC. They were going to take the lead on it, and that he'd have to wait. He said, no, but I need to tell you something. Me and Nitin stood in the middle of a reception, both of us crying, before it was over with, and he had given me this impassioned speech of why he was the one to lead this effort. And I said, well, it's not anything like you would be used to. It's just a small fund. It's about $1.1 million, and it's not, you're used to big stuff and big numbers. Why do you want to do this stuff? And so he explained to me his commitment and dedication for diversity and equity and inclusion, and I felt him right there, and we were like holding hands, and we were talking, and people were looking like, what are they doing? What's going on here? But for me, I'm excited about this because when you get like minds together and they want to do something to make sure that everyone has the right to succeed and the ability and access to capital, it works. And I had been involved with the Portland Seed program, and I thought it was great. And I said, wow, but one of the things that I thought that was missing was that we didn't have a lot of folks of color or women to pass through it. I mean, they had a great education piece, and I had worked with Mayor Adams on it, and it was huge. But there was something missing. And as I looked around and tried to find opportunities for the most vulnerable in our community, I looked and I saw the data, and the data said that there was 2%, less than 2% venture capital going to women and minority businesses. And you know, I thought it was unconscionable that that was happening, but I was in a position to make some things change. And I got a call from Reverend Jesse Jackson's folks, I think it was 2014, and he said, I want to talk with you about entrepreneurs in Portland, African American entrepreneurs, who are the tech entrepreneurs in the state. And I said, I can put together a roundtable. And his folks called back and said, well, he wants to do a dinner. I said, okay, we can do a dinner somewhere, and we can have a small group, and I can put together about 25 folks. And then he called back and said that he wanted me to have this private dinner at my home, and I thought, okay. He said, I'm going to be in town in a few weeks, and it's going to be the day after Thanksgiving. Where the day after Thanksgiving is the day of my granddaughter's birthday that I was hosting at my house. And he said, I really need to have a conversation, an intimate conversation, and I want you to put this on. So I decided to go ahead and do it, and it really informed me to what you saw here earlier. We pulled together those entrepreneurs, and we talked, and we kind of found out what were the challenges, what were the barriers to you becoming an entrepreneur as a tech entrepreneur, and the data's clear. It was access to capital. And we went through everyone's business, and all the entrepreneurs talked about what they were doing, but there was a lack of access to capital. And he said, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is because I'm going to go talk to Bill Gates. And I've talked to him every year, and I said, what are you doing in Washington, and what are you doing in Oregon for entrepreneurs of color? And he said, well, there are none, basically. So he wanted to be armed with some information and people. And we armed him with lots of folks. And he went back to Seattle and talked to him and said, this is what's happening in Oregon. Here's who is in Oregon. This is what they were doing. Are you all familiar with the iPhone app, Driving While Black? Yeah. Yes. Yes, and so that had just come out, and for me, it dealt with social responsibility, police accountability, giving our young people a quick review of what you should do, particularly if you're African American and you're stopped by law enforcement. And so it was very timely, but those are the kinds of things that I think move communities, particularly communities of color. And so I said I had to do something, and I put $500,000 in a amendment to our budget to say, we need to start this fund. And I partnered with Patrick Quinton, who was the former executive director of PDC. And he said, I think this is a good idea. I think we need to put this together and start this inclusive fund so people can feel that their tax dollar is going to work. Well, Mayor Hales, he was great, and he said, Commissioner, do you have your votes for this? I said, I know how to count to 3. We counted 3 on the other side of the river. And he said, I think this is an excellent opportunity, and I support it, and we passed it. And we doubled back and came back in 2017 and put another $150,000 in. And I want to thank the governor, too. She put $125,000 in. And it's such a small fund, and you don't think that it's a really big thing, but it was really big. And it's really helped. And some of your folks on this video, they were funded by it. And I want to say a big thumbs up to RFPIO for selling. Where are you? Yes, thank you. I know what you can do when you're deliberate about something. Now, while this is a very small fund and it's closed, we need more. We need all of you to come with us and do this by 100 times. Because in order for us to make sure that everybody is at the table, we're going to have to fund everyone. And they're not necessarily going to look like the person that you saw last week. They're going to be a little bit different. They have a different take. They have a little bit different life experience. And unfortunately, women and people of color, we don't get a chance to fail. We got to get it right the first time, because no one will fund us again. And unfortunately, I'm going to say this, white men are allowed to fail and come back and say, Bill, why don't you just tweak this and you get another $10 or $20 million? This allows us, this fund, an opportunity, allows folks who wouldn't ordinarily get access to capital. So if you're out there and you're angel investors, thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for making it possible for women and people of color to be able to live their dreams. But we got to do more of it and continue to support, elevate, and the work that the Inclusive Fund, I'd like to see an Inclusive Fund too. That will happen if I'm at City Hall, because I know for sure the way that you change a community is through education and entrepreneurship. And I love it, I love it, I love it, and thank you so much for what you do. Let's make this bigger and better next year. Thank you.